Hello, Meditation Club. Today is May 5th, Cinco de Mayo. Happy Cinco de Mayo. Schmoopy Puppy. This video is going to be a banger. It's going to be the best video I put out yet, by far. So, first I want to open up talking about fear. So, like, what is fear? Fear is, like, really it's just thoughts about, like, the future. Scary thoughts about the future that disturb us. There is no situation that you cannot make worse without, there's no situation that you cannot make worse. And what usually makes a situation worse is fear. And what usually makes a situation better is preparation for the worst possible scenario. So Benjamin Franklin writes, by failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. And there's this Hebrew proverb that got like the Jewish people, Jewish people have been through a lot, you know what I mean? And it said, life is a narrow bridge, and it is crucial not to be afraid. And that got the Jewish people through like the Holocaust and things like that. That's like a very important prayer. Life is a narrow bridge. If you look down, you become afraid. If you just keep moving forward, like, Kid Cudi, you're gonna be all right. So Marcus Aurelius, the topic for today's video, I'll get into my love for Marcus later, but he says, don't let your imagination be crushed by life as a whole. Don't try to picture everything bad that could possibly happen. This is the important part. Stick with the situation at hand and ask, why is this so unbearable? Why can't I endure it? And you'll be embarrassed to answer. So, as human beings, we've never really been quite so comfortable. We're living in a higher standard of living than we've ever had before. And laziness, procrastination, short attention spans are starting to, be the biggest problems that we have. And so a lot of these issues like laziness and procrastination stem from this core belief that we have that, like, it's very important for us to be comfortable. Like, a big point of our lives is for us to be comfortable. So Marcus writes, so you were born to feel nice, instead of doing things and experiencing them. Don't you see the plants, the birds, the ants, and the spiders going about their individual tasks, putting the world in order as best they can? And you're not willing to do your job as a human being? Why aren't you running to do what your nature demands? And by your nature demands, he's talking about like the flame within that tells you like go get up there and like do what you gotta do. So I guess he's kind of talking about like the purpose of life isn't really to be happy. But I mean, how could it be? Like, I don't think anyone really thinks it is, because what does it mean to be happy? Like, is anyone always happy? And because here on earth, the first of the Buddha's Four Noble Truths is that life is suffering. That's what life is. Like, I know I read a book about a guy, and like he grew up, he had a dad that abused him, he made it up, he got a PhD, he was rich, and then his sister dies of leukemia, and like his other sister gets shot. Life is suffering, you know what I mean? And to elaborate on this a bit before I move forward, the next of the Four Noble Truths is that looks at the cause of suffering. And the Buddha determines that the cause of suffering is desire and ignorance. And that's what the Buddhists believe. And that's like super true if you actually think about it. Stop it. So let's look at a modern day example of desire and ignorance. So right now on the screen, I'm gonna put up a poverty chart of poverty throughout like the 1800s to today. And what percentage of the population was living on like $1 a day to what percentage of the population is living on $1 like equivalent today, like throughout the entire world. And you will see that today we're living significantly better, including in America. Like, America's like booming, it's like the richest country, and yet we still want to look at, if we put all of history, the 0.00001% of the top wealthiest of all history, and be like, oh, I don't have them, I don't have what they have. We're always looking for more. Desire and ignorance is the root of our suffering. And there's another quote by C.S. Lewis, is that comparison is the thief of joy. And before I move on, I want to say this video today is going to be like incredibly quote heavy. Like, I have notes because I can't even remember all these quotes. So if you want to rewatch the video later to like get the quotes and actually like soak in the knowledge instead of just like, it'll get redundant, you can go back and watch it. I won't even know. The third noble truth is how to break free from suffering. That's enlightenment. And the fourth noble truth is how to get enlightenment, which is the Buddha's Eightfold Path. But let's move on. Through completeness and the state of being in, without needing anything more, one finds great strength. And that's not only a Stoic idea or a Buddhist idea, that's a pretty universal idea. I know that so far I've kind of been all over the place talking about fear, talking about like wealth and envy and stuff like that, but the main idea here is the importance of getting outside of your comfort zone. The only way to grow is to get outside of your comfort zone. And that's a good segue into Marcus, because Marcus talks about how we must keep moving forward, always, because time is always moving forward. We don't have time to look over the sides of the bridge and be afraid. We have to just keep moving forward, keep pushing. Stop. So next week we're going to talk about, we're going to review all of Stoicism. So far we've talked about Epictetus, not Epictus, as I said in the entire video. And before that, Seneca. I don't know which order we did them, but yeah. But today we're talking about Marcus Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius is the GOAT, I'm telling you. He was the emperor of Rome. I got this book right here, Marcus Aurelius book. This book I'll talk about more later, but later. He's the GOAT. But today we're going to be talking about Father Marcus, the GOAT. So first we talked about Epictetus, and he was the slave that got exiled, and he studied philosophy, and he came back. And then we discussed Seneca, the guy who tutored the student, and the student went on to put him to death on like conspiracy charges that he didn't even do. Except today we're going to discuss someone that was in an even greater position of power than both of them. He was the emperor of all of Rome during a very stressful time. And they all wrote about, all Stoics people wrote about how we can't really control the outside events, but we can control our reaction to them in our minds and our thoughts and our actions and how we treat others and things like that. But we can't control our circumstance. So the core idea really is that like we find strength in discipline, and we lose strength when we let ourselves like fall victim to the circumstances around us. And so who was Marcus Aurelius? He lived from 121 to 180 AD. He was a leader that is an example of a great leader. Like as I talked about earlier, some guy talked about the importance of finding a role model, the importance of finding a leader, someone to look up to in all that you do and all that you act. And Marcus Aurelius is a perfect example of that. He's a very famous leader. So Marcus grew up as a very serious man. He was in Spain. He was very athletic. He was very hardworking. He was into wrestling, boxing, archery, hunting, and he was chosen as a second choice because the first choice like died out of nowhere to be the successor to the emperor of Rome. And so before he went into becoming emperor of Rome, he went through like 2 to 5 years, I don't remember, of like intense education where like he had a bunch of mentors like Seneca or Epictetus, I forgot, and they taught him what he needed to know to be a good emperor. Now Marcus's reign as emperor was not easy at all, and he led during wars with the Parthian Empire, barbarian tribes who were attacking, the rise of Christianity, and most significantly the Antonine Plague. And historians would later write that Marcus was the last good emperor that Rome would ever see before the fall of Rome. The Antonine Plague was much worse than COVID-19. It had a mortality rate of around 25%, and it killed like 2,000 people a day in Rome alone, which devastated the Roman army completely. The Roman Empire looked more like a battlefield that was full of dead, rotten bodies, instead of like a prosperous empire. And everyone in Rome looked up to the leader for help. They all looked up to Marcus like, what are you gonna do? And Marcus told us, humanity will persevere. We persevere the same way that we're gonna persevere through this current epidemic, of course. And Marcus told the people all to remain calm. He said, bear in mind that all of this has happened before and it all will happen again. The same plot from beginning to end. So what else did he do? He stayed in Rome while most of the rich fled. He sold the imperial treasures, including his own wife's jewelry, the own chandeliers from the temple and stuff, just so he could rebirth the economy of Rome. He really didn't have an ego. He dedicated himself to doing what was right. And, you know, he's not really remembered as the emperor who was there during the plagues or during the wars. He's remembered as a guy with like a high level of moral value, a very intelligent person, and a great leader. All right. So this book right here, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. Like if you Google Marcus Aurelius, the first thing that's going to come up is Marcus Aurelius Meditations. This book is unlike any other book because this is a collection of his personal writings that were found in like his house and stuff after his death, and like they all got collected and put into this book right here. You can buy it on Amazon. So personally, the biggest message I think I've gotten from Stoicism, especially Marcus's work, is to remember death. Memento mori. I think it's Latin. He says, no one, no country, no planet, he doesn't say this, but no one, no country, no planet is as safe or as special as we would like to think. We're all at the mercy of nature, outside of our control, and we can all go at any moment. So Marcus writes, think of yourself as dead. You have lived your life. Now take what's left and live it properly. I mean, this is like the first good Marcus quote, but y'all about to get some good Marcus. I'm telling you, Marcus is the GOAT. And so personally, I think about once or twice a week, I do this meditation where I sit in bed, I get in a meditative state, you know, I do my breathing and all that, and then I imagine myself dying. Like, not just dying, I imagine myself dead. I imagine myself at my funeral, and the people around me, and they're all there, and they come to see me, and say whatever they're gonna say, and then I imagine myself getting lowered into the dirt, and imagine myself rotting and getting eaten away by worms. And you might think, Oliver, you're nuts. Oliver, are you okay? Oliver, do I need to go call up the suicide hotline? I'm perfectly fine. But it does two things. It makes me remember my insignificance on this earth, like Like, how many people are there on this earth? How many people have lived on this earth? Like, I'm so little nothing. And it makes you remember that death could come at any time. So I need to strive to be the best version of myself that I can be every day. Not like, oh, tomorrow I'll be the best today. I'm gonna, play Call of Duty all day. Sometimes I play Call of Duty all day. It's just an idea. Sometimes it's implemented, sometimes it's not. I'm not perfect. And so it's just about me being as good as I can be personally, because death could come at any time. And again, that idea really is not crazy. It's not crazy at all, because death and birth are just forces of nature. Like, everything in life is born and everything in life is dead. The day you're born, you're given a death sentence. Everybody knows that. That's not like surprising to anyone. And Marcus writes, death smiles at us all, but all a man can do is smile back. And smile back, not like be like, oh, death, but like smile back. Like, he uses death to his advantage. And then he writes, it is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to truly live. I'm telling you, look at these quotes. Like, who wrote this? This big old emperor, like, back in the day, he sat in his palace, he wrote this up. Like, this is gold, I'm telling you. He says, this is what my death meditation is about, smiling back. Death is an event horizon. It's like on a black hole. Once you go through the event horizon, nobody knows what's on the other side. So why fear the unknown instead of use the unknown to our advantage to get more out of life and to be better people? So Marcus was constantly reminding himself of this whole memento mori, remember death idea. He made sure that this thought of death shaped his thought, every choice, and every action. Be good to each other, he wrote. A disease like this can only threaten our lives. The disease, I'm talking about the plague that killed like everyone back then. But evil, selfishness, pride, hypocrisy, fear, like I talked about, this attacks our humanity as people. And he writes, when you arise in the morning, I'm kind of on the next thing here. When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, and to love, because we could be dead. Man, I'm on a roll right now. I'm on a roll. Basically what I'm saying, if some of that went over your head, don't fear death. Use death to motivate you and to help you be grateful and to appreciate life. And that is so important. Gratitude. Like, here's, Oliver talking about himself as if he were perfect. But you know what my secret is to not like crying and freaking out and having a mental breakdown whenever some bad things happen to me? It's gratitude. I think about like all of the things that I'm good for. Like, not only life and, life, like, hey, I'm alive, I'm grateful for that. But I think about all the things that I have, like possessions, and also all the things that I have like within me. Like my characteristics, my qualities, things that have been given to me by nature or God or whatever you want to call it. Stop it. And like I mentioned earlier, we're living in a standard of living much higher than ever before. And that's only one thing to be grateful for. Like, there's so much more to be grateful for. And whenever people come to me for help, I tell them like that one thing, like, what are you grateful for? Like, are you keeping track of things that you're grateful for? Things like that. And like, if you've actually come to me for help for any reason, you know that that's true. Like, that's like the first thing I always go to. Stop it. Okay, enough about me. Back to Father Marcus. He says, he writes about gratitude. Do not indulge of dreams of having what you have not, but reckon upon the blessings that you do possess, and thankfully remember how you would crave for them if they were not yours. And this quote goes out personally to a few of the people who I thought of when this came upon me. I'm going to read it again. Do not indulge in dreams of having what you have not, but reckon upon the blessings you do possess, and thankfully remember how you would crave for them if they were not yours. Think about that. Like, how would you crave? Okay, maybe you can't say the thing about life and death. Like, how would I crave for life if I was dead? But like, I don't know, your family. Crave. Like, imagine if you didn't have a family. Think about how you would feel. Like, how much you would crave for a family, and that makes you so much more grateful for everything that you have. And Marcus always also writes about something particularly relevant to this club. The importance of watching and keeping track of your thoughts. I'm always saying, watch your thoughts, watch your thoughts, watch your thoughts. Like, if you listen to me when I'm out there, spitting my advice at like random people on the hallways of Carnegie, I'm always telling them like, oh, watch your thoughts, watch your thoughts, watch your thoughts. Because I remember I gave this example of how most people, someone they hate will walk in the room and they'll be like, oh, I hate her. But like, they don't understand how damaging that is, because they're not actually aware and they're not actually watching their thoughts. Like, they don't understand how damaging that is, because not only are you soaking in their negative energy, I mean, if you hate someone, they're probably a negative person, but you're creating your own negative energy. It's a lose-lose. And if you're not watching your thoughts, and that's just one example, you can, drive yourself into a dark place. All right, back to the quotes of Marcus. And like, as I said earlier, maybe rewatch this video, because I've already said a whole bunch of quotes and I couldn't even remember them personally, but these quotes are fire. Okay, he writes, the happiness of life depends on the quality of your thoughts. He also writes, very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself and your way of thinking. Your mind will take the shape of what you frequently hold in thought, for the human spirit is colored by such impressions. And finally, before I get into that, there's also this book called As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. It was written in like 1910. And if you know Gucci Mane, like Big Goo Wop 1017, he was in prison. And he says he read that book and it changed his life. And that book is all about how whatever you're thinking, it goes on to determine your circumstances. Like perception is everything. And so he was thinking back then when he was in prison, like about like drug dealing and things like that. But he started thinking like thoughts about success and gratitude and things, and like prosperity followed him. And Marcus writes, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." And that's the core idea of Stoicism. You have power over your mind, not outside events. So we're going to review next time like all of Stoicism and all of the ideas around it. But another great message is what I talked about when I discussed Epictetus, not Epictus, as I said the whole video, the slave who studied philosophy, and that is amor fati, love fate. No matter what happens to you, accept it. Accept whatever comes to you. It's the pattern of your destiny, for what could more aptly fit your needs. He writes that, he says, you don't have to turn this into something. It doesn't have to upset you. Whatever happens, it's a part of fate. If you just say, oh, it is what it is, and you don't react to it, when you react to something in either a positive way or a negative way, you're making more of it than what it is. If you just see it for what it is, a part of, the fate, the plan, God's plan, whatever you want to call it, it is what it is. It's one of the birds. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. All right, anyway, so the importance of trying not to be afraid, instead to be prepared for the worst is what I talked about. Review gratitude, like I said, imagine, everything you have, and imagine the desire you would feel for it if you did not have it. Review death. Death, I talked about the quote about like live your life as if you're already dead, and then go on to live the life as if you had just died. Like move on forward with death is like the core paradigm. And review the importance of your thoughts, how you have power over your mind, not your externals. Love fate, everything's gonna be all right. Okay, so the meditation part of the video for a meditation club, I realized like all of that clipping, that 10-minute meditation on the end with me saying like breathe deeply, like it's probably not the best idea. So I'm just gonna put like in the description of a guided meditation that we've done before. It's like the greatest guided meditation on YouTube, in my opinion. You can go find your own, or whatever. But I'm doing that because A, it's easier to get the video on YouTube if there's an extra 10-minute clip added to the video, and B, because there's like a guide in that meditation that like tells you what to do and keeps your attention on what you're doing. Because it's pretty hard to meditate, I can't lie. I've kind of been slacking on the meditation personally. I only do it like, I don't know, three times a week maybe. That's like on a good week. But anyway, see you.